You told me you didn't have a power, so when I saw this timid, quirkless boy try to save a life, it inspired me to act too. There are stories about every hero, how they became great. Most have one thing in common. Their bodies moved before they had a chance to think, almost on their own. Young man, you too can become a hero.
This scene right here is the foundation of why Izuku Midoriya is one of my favorite characters in anime, which may seem odd to many people, especially the crazy amount of people in the My Hero Academia fandom who hate the main character of the series, or at least have some passing disdain for him. Oftentimes people will say that he had everything handed to him while others had to work for it and that's why they don't like him, or that he's a chosen one goody two-shoes Boy Scout so that somehow makes him boring. Many also say he's too forgiving with Bakugo, or that he doesn't deserve his power since he never trained before he received One for All. And of course there are also those who just mock him and say he's a crybaby. But in all seriousness, I'd like to take a look at the criticism and analyze Deku and show you all why he is actually a perfect main character for My Hero Academia. So let's start off with the main focus of a lot of the issues people have with Deku, his quirklessness, and that crucial question Midoriya asked All Might.
Is it possible to become a hero even if I don't have a quirk?
Aside from his insane love for his hero All Might, we learned right off the bat that Midoriya has no quirk, no superpowers. In a world where 80% of the population has these insane supernatural abilities, like shooting tape out of your elbows, turning people into literal meatballs, or just literally having a gun for a head. No, but seriously, how the heck does this guy eat? Or drink? How does he speak? Anyways, we also see that Midoriya is clearly obsessed with superheroes, and I do mean obsessed. He's analyzed their costumes, their history, their powers, personalities, etc. And he's clearly someone whose deepest dream is to be a superhero. But he does this while he himself has no special abilities. His classmates, and especially this ball of rage and insecurity, constantly remind him of this fact. Even on such a horrible day where his journal's thrown into the water and he's attacked by a villain and he's bullied, and he finally gets to meet his hero, he's reminded he can't be a superhero without powers by his idol himself. But of course, as the show obviously displays, it's not your abilities which make you a hero, but your heart. Doing what is right, saving people, even in the face of insurmountable odds, and most likely, let's be honest here, the threat of death. But in terms of being a superhero, well, those people who bully him aren't exactly wrong. To save people and be good, it takes good morals and courage, defiance in the face of evil. But even with all of that, the show also makes one simple brute fact known from the get-go. Not all men are created equal. Equal in value, yes, but not in terms of ability. It's a simple fact that someone who is an 80 IQ smooth brain won't be able to figure out new models for physics, and that someone with muscular dystrophy probably isn't going to body a 6'6" Giga Chad with immaculate physique. Simply put, Deku, without powers, cannot be a superhero. Not a reliable or powerful one, at least. As much as we all love, say for instance, Moomin Rider and One Punch Man for his courage and heart, he could not beat the big bads. He's a hero at heart, which does matter. But in order to do the things people like All Might or Superman do, you have to have the abilities, not just the desire and the courage. We see this reinforced with Endeavor in the story as well. It's a fact that no matter how hard some people train and strive, that they may never be able to surpass someone who is a near-perfect prodigy with insanely good genetics. Or, in the case of All Might, insanely good powers. This doesn't mean the person who trains nonstop or has to work more at it is inferior as a person, but that there will always be a ceiling that you can't reach. No one is perfect. And even if you're the best at one particular thing, that doesn't mean you're the best at everything else, or don't have crippling flaws just like every other human being. So I'm sorry to break it to you, but if you wanted another story of a Batman-esque character, then you'll be sorely disappointed with My Hero Academia. But then that begs the question. If the quirkless can't be superheroes, then why do people treat Deku with such disdain for the fact that he inherited his powers from All Might? This has to do with the idea that inherited power is somehow worse than having self-gained power. that being given power, wealth, what have you, is worse inherently than earning it yourself. But what people are forgetting is that even inheritance has to be kept most of the time. I think a lot of this is related to the Western, but especially the American idea of individual success. The so-called American dream, where we earn all of our success and everything we have purely off of our own hard work and rising above our conditions to become something more. This is, of course, not a bad thing, but neither is inheriting the fruit of that hard work. After all, if people work so hard for their whole lives, should they not pass the torch down? Most who don't do that are left with no legacy at the end of the day. And this legacy that people inherit from others, whether they be parents, mentors, or teachers, it still has to be cultivated. In order to keep that torch burning, you have to fuel it and tend to it. You can't simply hang it up on a wall and expect it to keep burning forever. The truth that a lot of people don't want to confront is that Deku did train. He trained so hard he got sick and collapsed. He worked out every single day. He studied. He put his mind and knowledge to work, and also under All Might's tutelage grew to be an absolutely shredded Chad. He didn't just get his power, he had to tend to it in order to keep it, or even to use it in the first place without, exploding or having his limbs pop off. And we're shown throughout the first several arcs of the series until he finally is under Gran Torino's tutelage, and even afterwards, that when Deku uses the power of One for All past his own body's ability to handle it, it destroys his body. I mean, it's one of the main things the series is known for. He breaks his fingers, he breaks his arms, he breaks his legs. He even does a move that should have blown half his face off during the tournament, all to train to, as he tells Bakugo, make this inherited power his. So no, he isn't just some random guy who got something he didn't deserve. His heart and courage made him worthy of being called a hero. But it's his hard work and perseverance that makes him worthy of wielding One for All and being a superhero. We even know with where the show is now, for instance, that more than just getting One for All, it's those without any powers in the first place who are the ones that are best to inherit One for All. And even if some dislike that writing decision, we should remember that All Might himself was quirkless, and yet he became a symbol of peace, and the best hero in the entirety of the country of Japan for years, and probably one of the best in the entire world. Speaking of All Might, his entire character is a reflection of Deku, or vice versa, I suppose. All Might is good at heart, obsessed with saving people, and absolutely does not take his own health into consideration most of the time. He is stubborn, but always wanting to put a smile on people's faces and make them feel safe. This is what Deku wants to become, what he wants to be. People see Deku as a Boy Scout character like Superman or Captain America, and I'm going to speak a little bit off the cuff here. I feel like this obsession with edgy characters has gotten more than old. I'm being honest, everybody. The anti-hero trope is tired, stupid, and almost always poorly written these days, but I suppose that's a video for another time. Anyways, back on topic. This ignores the internal struggles of these characters. All Might and Deku show the absolute pain and struggle of living a life for others' sake before our own. We're told in the Beatitudes in Christ's Sermon on the Mount that blessed are the pure in heart, for they shall see God, and blessed are the peacemakers, for they shall be called the sons of God. It is a painful life to live, as we are also told that if the world hates us, to remember that it hated him first. And the world absolutely ends up hating Deku and heroes in general. Deku is persecuted for righteousness' sake, yet he doesn't even focus on his own wants and needs. In fact, he is so dedicated to this that he forces away the desire to help himself and look after his own health in something as basic as accepting and eating a meal that All Might prepared for him. Deku, if anything, is so dedicated to helping others that it can be to his own detriment. Like a bowstring pulled too taut, he is bound to snap. But he doesn't complain about this. He believes it is his duty and responsibility, that it is what is right. And it takes his friends literally forcing him down and fighting him in order for him to understand that he can fight this fight with his friends, and that he isn't in the battle all by himself. And people still, after all of that, have the audacity to call him boring or mid. Are you serious? If anything, the love Midoriya shows for even his enemies is truly astounding. He is truly pure in spirit, even wanting to help Shigaraki despite knowing how evil he is. Shigaraki is a scarred person, sick to his core with sin and evil. It reminds me a lot of Tanjiro in Demon Slayer and his pureness of heart, and his desire to free even the most evil creatures on the planet from their condition, because he knows there is some good in them still, that they used to be normal people. It doesn't stop him from fighting them, but he doesn't fight for bloodlust. Just like how Deku fights to save people and Tanjiro fights to save his sister. meekness ultimately is not weakness. I can look to the example of St. Nectarios of Egina as an Orthodox Christian. He was slandered and persecuted for his entire life. When he was persecuted and slandered while it was just his own life on the line, he suffered in silence, and he focused on helping others at all times. But when he was an old man, and he had helped found a convent for nuns, and the nuns were being threatened by the slander directed at him because people were jealous of how pious he was more than willing to ensure that the nuns who had dedicated themselves to monasticism and loved that life would have their life and wishes protected. Seriously, if you haven't seen it, I highly recommend the movie Man of God, by the way. You should check it out. But this kind of behavior also extends to his childhood friend, turned bully, turned rival, Bakugo. Bakugo is so vicious to Midoriya that he tells him to, well, you know what himself in the first episode. But Deku is constantly taking it on the chin and focusing on his own goals. He doesn't let Bakugo's anger and pride and insecurity stop him from pursuing his goals. This eventually, of course, culminates in their fight where Deku tells Bakugo that he won't be his punching bag anymore. But even during this, he's only looking out for Bakugo. He understands that this is his only way that he knows of letting out his emotions, and he only wants to help him. To contemporary or secular people, this is stupid behavior. Shouldn't he just beat up Bakugo and get revenge, make him pay? The answer is no. Vengeance is mine, says the Lord, and Deku's patience with Bakugo is rewarded. Bakugo eventually lets his feelings loose, and Deku realizes that Bakugo has been blaming himself and that he's just lashing out. And of course, later we understand why Bakugo had become more loyal to Deku, even taking a hit for him in the battle with Shigaraki. Bakugo learned that he couldn't succeed all on his own, but that lesson was something that Midoriya had yet to learn. And we get what is, in my opinion, one of the single best scenes in the entire series. Bakugo's apology to Midoriya.
Saying this out loud doesn't change a thing, but it's how I feel, Izuku. I'm sorry for everything.
We understand that Bakugo was always insecure because Deku was different. They both had sparks and they were lively, but Deku always had that heart to be great, and he saw Bakugo differently. And Bakugo's own insecurities made him lash out and bully Deku to try and make himself feel superior, because he was always praised for his amazing quirk, while Deku didn't even have one. And later he got humbled. He had to watch the person who had always been beneath him be exalted, and he couldn't catch up, no matter how hard he tried. In the end, Deku being a crybaby, while it's funny, it comes down to him having a big heart, and as the story has gone on, he has matured and gotten a lot stronger. His heart, his compassion, his purity, and his absolute dedication to becoming the best hero he can be is why he is such a good main character and why he's one of my favorites. In this era of the story where it's at now, at least in the show, where heroes are distrusted and hated and reviled, where there isn't some monetary or social reward for being a hero, only those who are actually dedicated to doing good are the ones who will stick around. And no one has shown this more clearly than Midoriya himself. In an age that is collapsing, where sin has abounded, where everyone is focused on their own gains and are afraid of what may come tomorrow, where evil runs rampant and destruction is a daily reality, the people need a symbol. And who better than the wielder of one for all? After all, this show is the story of how Deku became the #1 hero.
You're safe now. Why are you walking around in this weather?
I didn't evacuate. At first it seemed like the area wasn't affected much. I guess I thought everything would blow over if I holed up at home. Then people around me started getting hurt, and I got scared.
You know, I bet everyone else is scared too.
You think things will go back to normal?
I'll make sure of it.
If you're a fan of the content, I hope you'll stick around. Please do subscribe and leave a comment if you enjoyed the video. I'm trying to be a little more consistent with videos, but life can be very, very busy. It's hard working a full-time job and also doing YouTube because I genuinely enjoy doing this. But I'll see you all in the next one, and as always, until next time, God be with you.